My university in Japan offered a language exchange program. An American student, Chad, was paired with a Japanese student named Ryosuke. In their first meeting, Ryosuke was trying his best to practice English. Chad, however, was getting impatient. He finally said, "Dude, your English is okay, but let's be real. My Japanese is non-existent. So, how about this? You just speak English to me, and I'll speak English back, but really slowly. That way we're both learning." Ryosuke looked completely bewildered, asking, "But how will you learn Japanese?" Chad just clapped him on the back and said, "I'll absorb it, man. It's fine. The important thing is that we can communicate, and English is just faster." I was managing a high-end restaurant in Barcelona when an American couple was seated. They waved me over, ignoring their Spanish waiter. The husband pointed at the menu, which had descriptions in Catalan, Spanish and English. "None of this makes any sense," he declared. "I just want a steak, a big American-style T-bone." "Can you do that?" I explained that we served local cuts like a solo milo. He looked at me annoyed and said, "Look, I'm not going to try and say that word. Just tell the chef to make me a T-bone. T-bone. He must know what that is. It's the king of steaks." He seemed to believe that the name of a specific American cut of beef was a universal constant, that our chef was simply choosing to ignore out of spite. I worked at a car rental agency at the airport in Munich, Germany. An American family came to the counter to pick up their reserved vehicle, a station wagon. The father looked at the car and said, "Whoa, hold on. This thing has a stick shift." "I can't drive a stick shift." I explained that manual transmissions are standard in Europe, and that automatic cars must be specifically requested. He threw his hands up in disbelief. "Why would you make things so complicated? The whole world drives automatics. It's $2023. Can't you just, I don't know, convert it for me? Just take the clutch out. Or something. We have a schedule to keep." He genuinely thought we could perform a major mechanical alteration on the spot, because he hadn't read the rental agreement. While on a guided tour of the Vatican, an American woman grew increasingly frustrated. The guide, an Italian art historian, was using the proper Italian names for the artists like Michelangelo and Raffaello. After he mentioned Raffaello for the third time, the woman interrupted him loudly. "Excuse me, can you please use their American names? It's Michelangelo and Raphael. We don't know who these other people you're talking about are. You're making the tour very confusing for us by being so technical." She was adamant that the anglicized pronunciations were the correct and official names, and our Italian guide was just being pretentious. An American software company sent a manager to our office in Bangalore, India, to oversee a project. He gathered the team of experienced Indian developers and said, "All right, team, I know there can be a language barrier, so I'm going to keep things simple. From now on, we're going to use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid." The entire room fell silent. He was completely oblivious that he had just called his new team of highly skilled professionals stupid as his very first act of management. All because he assumed their excellent English wasn't good enough for his advanced American communication style. I was in a pharmacy in Athens, Greece, trying to get some allergy medication. The American in front of me was having a complete meltdown. He was trying to describe his symptoms to the Greek pharmacist by acting them out. He was fake sneezing dramatically and rubbing his eyes while shouting, "Pollen the yellow dust, it attacks me." The pharmacist, who spoke some English, was trying to ask him what medication he usually takes. The American just got louder. "I don't know the Greek word. Just give me the pink pills, the ones from the TV commercials." He seemed to think that American television ads were broadcast globally and were a valid form of medical prescription. My American friend came to visit me for Christmas in Vienna, Austria. We went to a traditional Christmas market and he was confused by a sign that said, "Glue Vine." He asked me what it was. I explained it's a hot mulled wine with spices. He looked disgusted. "You drink hot wine. Why would anyone do that?" He then walked up to the vendor and said in a very loud voice, "Do you have a normal wine? You know, cold from a bottle?" The vendor just pointed back at the sign. My friend sighed and said, "This is ridiculous. They don't even know how to serve wine properly. It's like they've never been to a real restaurant." I was on a train from Amsterdam to Brussels. The announcements were made first in Dutch, then French, then English. Every time the Dutch and French announcements came on, the American man sitting across from me would groan and say to his wife, "Here we go again with the Moon Man talk." Why can't they just make that English announcement first? It's the only one that actually matters to people. He was personally offended by the existence of the official languages of the countries he was traveling through, viewing them as an unnecessary delay to his own comprehension. An American executive was visiting our headquarters in Stockholm for a major presentation. He was introduced to the head of our Swedish division, a woman named Åsa. He looked at her name tag, paused, and said, "Yikes, I'm not even going to try that. I'm just going to call you Ace. Like a winner. See? It's positive." He beamed, incredibly proud of his clever solution. He called her Ace for the entire week, completely ignoring the fact that he had unilaterally renamed a senior executive in her own country because he couldn't be bothered to learn the pronunciation of a two-syllable name. I was working at a tourist information center in Bataise, Queenstown, New Zealand. An American tourist came in and asked about the local wildlife. I started telling him about the kiwi bird and the Kia parrot. He interrupted me and said, No, I mean the cool stuff. Where do you keep the kangaroos and koalas?" I politely explained that those animals are native to Australia, not New Zealand. He looked at me with genuine disbelief and said, "Are you serious? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're telling me I flew all the way to this part of the world, and you guys don't even have the main animals. It's like going to Africa and them not having lions." I was working at a pub in Galway, Ireland, when an American tourist ordered a pint. He then asked the old man sitting next to him, a local farmer, where he was from. The farmer replied in his thick West Island accent. The American listened intently, nodded, and then said, "That's a really good accent. It almost sounds real. How long have you been practicing it for the tourists?" The farmer, who had lived in the same village for 70 years, just took a slow sip of his Guinness and stared at him in complete silence. An American company acquired our small tech firm in Denmark. The new CEO flew in for a meeting. He looked at the names of the founders, Freya and Soren, and said, "Okay, folks, we need to be more international. From now on, you're Fred and Sarah. They're good, strong, marketable names." He wasn't joking. He genuinely believed he was improving their personal branding by anglicizing their traditional Danish names. I witnessed an American tourist arguing with a street vendor in Cairo. The vendor was telling him the price in Egyptian pounds. The American kept trying to hand him US dollars, saying, "This is real money. This is what it's worth." The vendor refused, asking for local currency. The American got angry and said, "Look, every other country I've been to takes the dollar. Why are you being so difficult? It's the world's currency. Just take it." My American roommate in Seoul was trying to learn Korean. He downloaded an app but refused to learn the Hangul alphabet. He said, "It's a waste of time. I'll just learn the Romanized versions." The result was him walking into restaurants and confidently asking for kimbap, but pronouncing it Jimbob. He couldn't understand why people were so confused by his perfectly clear pronunciation. An American family on my tour of the Palace of Versailles was complaining about the historical signs. The mother said, "Why is the French part written so big and the English part is in tiny letters underneath. It feels very passive-aggressive, her husband added. Exactly. Most of the people here are tourists. They should cater to the customer, and the customer speaks English. We were standing in the most iconic landmark in France. I was in a taxi in Harcaille, Lisbon, and the driver had the radio on playing a beautiful Fado song. The American tourist in the car with me asked the driver, "Can you please change the station? I can't understand the words to this song." The driver didn't understand, so the tourist repeated louder, "Change music. I want English song." He seemed to think the radio was a personal Spotify playlist that should be tailored to his linguistic preference. At my office in Helsinki, Finland, we have a tradition of a quiet coffee break. An American consultant who was visiting found this very strange. He said, "You guys are so quiet. It's weird. In America, we call this networking. You should be talking, making deals." He then proceeded to walk around the quiet room, loudly asking people about their weekend plans, completely shattering the cherished moment of peace. An American tourist in a Japanese onsen, hot spring, was told he had to bathe completely. Naked, as is the custom, he refused, saying, "I'm not doing that. I'm an American and we believe in modesty." He then tried to enter the communal bath wearing his boxer shorts, ignoring the attendant who was trying to explain the hygiene rules. He thought his nationality gave him a pass on a centuries-old cultural and sanitary practice. I overheard an American student in a cafe in Rome telling his friend, "The language here is so inefficient, like they have masculine and feminine words for tables and chairs. Who has time for that?" In English, a thing is just a thing. We perfected it. He was critiquing a 1,000-year-old Romance language, as if it were a buggy software update that needed to be streamlined. My company in Mumbai had a video conference with our American headquarters. The connection was a bit fuzzy. The American manager said, "I can't understand a word you guys are saying. It must be the bad connection." Then an Indian colleague with a British accent spoke, and the manager said, "Oh, I can hear you perfectly. See, it's their accents, not the connection." He openly blamed his colleague's native accents for the technical issue. An American tourist in a Scottish Highlands gift shop picked up a lamb's wool scarf. He asked the shopkeeper, "Is this real wool?" The old woman replied, "If of course it is." The tourist then asked, "So, do you have to translate the sheep's bleat into English to know what they want?" He was completely serious, thinking the animals in Scotland also communicated in a different language. I was on a flight from Bangkok, and the flight attendant made an announcement in Thai followed by English. An American passenger pressed the call button. When the attendant arrived, he said, "Could you do me a favor and just make the announcements in English from now on? I don't need to hear all the other stuff. And it's taking up valuable time. I could be sleeping." An American exchange student in my class in Art, Brazil, was named James. A local student called him Saime, pronounced Jaime, the Portuguese equivalent. James got offended and said, "My name is James, James. It's an English name. Please don't try to speak it in Spanish." He had managed to be wrong about the language, the pronunciation, and the friendly intention of the local student all at once. I saw an American at a bakery in Germany, trying to buy 6 bread rolls. He held up 6 fingers and said, "6. The baker, confused, replied, "Sex." The American shook his head and repeated very slowly and loudly, "No, stick. I won't stick to them." He thought the baker was trying to correct his quantity, not clarifying the number in her own language. My American boss sent an email to our global team with the subject line, "Let's touch base." He received several confused replies from the Japanese and Italian offices. Instead of explaining the idiom, he sent a follow-up email saying, "Team, It's a simple American phrase. If you want to succeed in a global market, you need to learn the global language of business. An American tourist in a quiet Tanite Buddhist temple in Cambodia was on a video call talking loudly. A monk approached him and gestured for him to be quiet. The American pointed at his phone and said, "It's my mom. It's important." He seemed to believe his personal conversations superseded the sacred rules of silence, observed in a place of worship. I was at a wine tasting in the Bordeaux region of France. The sommelier was describing the notes of the wine in French with an English translator. Beside him, an American in the group interrupted and said, "Can we skip the French part? It all sounds the same anyway. Just give us the English version so we know if it's good or not." My cousin from Florida visited me in Montreal during the winter. He saw a sign that said Rue Barré and asked me what it meant. I told him it meant road closed. He scoffed and said, "Why don't they just write that it would be so much easier for everyone? It's like they're trying to keep it a secret from the tourists." We were in the middle of a French-speaking city. An American at a hotel in Prague was trying to use the elevator. The buttons were labeled G123. He wanted to go to the lobby. He kept pressing $1 and getting frustrated. I explained that G stood for ground floor. He replied, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why not just L for lobby? It's the only word that makes sense."